Hi, my name is Thiago Passos, and today I'm going to show you how to build and deploy your Angular app to Azure. It does seem like an easy task, but it's actually a bit tricky. So let's have a look. I wrote a whole blog post with these steps to build and deploy your Angular app. Okay, first of all, I'm going to create my Angular app using the Angular CLI. Right, so if you don't have Angular CLI installed, just go and npm install globally Angular CLI. Cool, easy as that. Okay, but in this case, I do have the Angular CLI installed. So if I type ng and enter, I'm gonna have a bunch of options to go through. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna go to my source folder, repos, and I'm gonna go to my temp folder, and I'm going to create my first Angular app using CLI. In this case here, I'm using Angular 5, which is the latest one for now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ng new ng5 test. Okay, so that's going to create a folder and create a bunch of files in there. And it's also going to install a bunch of npm packages. So while this is being created, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the browser and I'm going to create a repository on GitHub so I can publish all these files into GitHub. Okay, so let's go to GitHub now and I'm going to create a new repository. I'm going to keep the name consistent. So it's going to be ng5 test. It's going to be public, and I'm going to create the repository. I'm going to leave the repository as is right now, because as soon as I have everything in place for my Angular app, I'm going to just copy these 2 lines of code so I can add the origin, the Git origin, to my repository, and I can push to my remote repository. Okay, so this is still going. It might take a bit of time to complete that. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create my site in Azure. Okay, so let's have a look at that. I've got a resource group called free tier apps. So it's all the apps that I put just for testing. So I'm going to create a new resource. I'm going to search for web. Select the first one, web app, and create. I'm going to give it a name, ng5 test. Same subscription, resource group, free tier apps, and I'm going to use the free tier plan, which is free. All right, so creating. That shouldn't take too long to create. In the meantime, let's have a look on how the engineer is going. So it's still going. It's cool. All right, so the deployment of the web application is happening. Okay, so as soon as this is done, the app is going to be available, right? I'll be able to navigate to ng5 test dot azurewebsites.net, I think. So let me go to the resource. Okay, azurewebsites.net. So I can click there, and my site is up and running. Cool. All right. So the next thing I need to do is I need to configure the continuous deployment. Okay. So I created my repository in GitHub, and now I want to link the Azure website to that GitHub repository. Okay. So I'm gonna go to deployment options. I'm gonna choose the source, select GitHub, and because I've got my credentials here already, it's already pre-populated. So I'm going to choose a project, select ng5 test. I'm going to keep the master branch, and then OK. Okay, so that's going to get the latest version of my code. It's going to do some building in the background, which is quite secret at this point, so you don't know what's happening under the covers. And it deploys. Okay, in this case nothing happened because I don't have any commit into my repository yet. So that's going to be the next step. Okay, so my Angular app is now done. All right, so now I need to go to the folder that I created my app, so I can do an ng sub inside the folder. Okay, ng5 test. Okay, I'm just going to do an npm install just to make sure that it's got all the dependencies. Okay, all good. Now let's try ng serve. Okay, so now I have everything built, and I should be able to go to the browser and navigate to localhost 4200. Cool, so I've got my app and it's running locally. So now what should I do to make sure that that gets deployed to Azure? Okay, just a few things before I get there. What I want to achieve is basically deploy the compiled version of my app to the website, okay? Because if I go to Visual Code, for example, just to open the source code, you can see that I've got a bunch of files in there, right? So when I commit that to GitHub, it's gonna have all that. So I don't want this to be in the website. What I actually want to do is to have something like this. So ng build prod. So it's gonna be the production version of the build. So when I do this, what's gonna happen is it's gonna create a dist folder. And inside that dist folder is gonna be all the precompiled TypeScript. It's gonna do the tree shaking. It's gonna keep only the things that are being used for that application. So it's gonna be very lightweight. All right. So now that this is done, I can see that in this dist folder, I just have like a few files, and that's all I need to run the website. Okay. So if I go to this index.html and I open locally, it's gonna work the same way. All right. So at the end of the day, what I want is these files here to be deployed to my website. But for this to happen, I needed to build, I need Azure to build my Angular app and push that to my website. Okay, but how do I achieve that without a CI pipeline? Okay, so that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay, I've created the GitHub repository. I created the Azure website. I'm going to now push all my source code to GitHub so I can start using that. And then I'm going to start showing you some tricks. Okay, so now I'm going to git init so I can start an empty Git repository. I'm going to go and do a git. Let me copy that. All right, so I added my origin. And now what I want to do is I'm going to add all the files and I'm going to commit everything. Okay, so everything is committed. Now I can go and push. Okay, so as soon as this is done, I should be able to see the files in here. And the other thing that's going to happen is the Azure website is going to trigger the deployment. Okay, so I've got my files here, and if I go back to my Azure website, I'm just going to navigate out and back here. So you see that it picked up a new build. Okay, this is going to fail actually because Azure doesn't know how to run the Angular app, how to build the Angular app. And that's what we need to do. We need to tell Azure how to build the Angular app. Okay. All right, so here are some tricks. I'm gonna go to my, let me just close a few things here. Close this. All right, so Azure has something called Kudu. Okay, so Kudu is a bunch of tools. Some of them will help you to build stuff. Okay, so you can use something called Kudu script, which is basically a npm package. So if you don't have it, you can go npm install globally Kudu script. But because I do have it, I can just run Kudu script, and it actually doesn't have a lot of documentation. But what you need to do is you're gonna go in Y and Node, because this is gonna be a Node application. Okay, so if I do that, as soon as I do that, it's gonna create two files into the folder. It's gonna create a deployment file, this guy here, and it's also gonna create this deploy.cmd. And the deploy CMD is going to tell how Node will build the Angular app. Okay, so I don't need to worry about most of the things here. But what I need to do is I need to go to the deployment tab. Okay, so in here we've got a few things. We've got this kudu sync, which is basically going to copy everything from the source folder to the target folder. And here's something that I want to show you. Okay, if I go to my Azure website, what I want to show you is we've got a few folders in the website. Okay, but the most important ones are the www root, which is the one that's going to be served to the website. Okay, but we also have another folder called repository. So if I go up one level, you see that I've got in my D home site, I've got the www root and the repository. Okay, so when a new commit goes into GitHub and Azure picks it up, it's gonna copy the latest version. It's gonna actually pull the latest version from GitHub to the repository folder. Okay, and that's the source folder. And what it's gonna do, that kudu sync is gonna copy everything that's in this repository folder, and it's gonna push to my www root folder. Okay, so it's not treating anything, it's just doing that. It's gonna copy and paste to the www root. What I want to do actually is I want to keep everything in the repository folder. I want to do the build there. I'm gonna do the ng build, and I want to push just the this folder into the target folder, which is the www root. Okay, so that's what you see here. So I'm going to sync from the source folder to the target folder, from the repository folder to the www root folder. Okay, so I'm gonna keep these at the end. Okay, and what I'm gonna do differently here is I'm going to put this folder. Okay, because once I build that, I'm gonna put everything in this folder, and I'm gonna copy the content of this folder into the target folder. Okay, awesome. All right, so as I said before, I wrote a whole blog post about that. So I'm gonna go back to my blog, and what I'm gonna do is I wanna copy a few things here. I'm gonna explain what I'm doing, okay? So I'm gonna copy this step here, okay? And I'm gonna change a few things here. So in here it's saying, all right, so if the target, if the package.json exists in the www root folder, in the target folder, then go ahead and do an npm install production. But I don't want to do that. I want to do that in the source folder. So I'm going to go to my source folder, which is the repository folder, and I'm going to do the install, the npm install production. Okay, so that's going to happen in this step here. In this one, what I'm going to do is check if there is a Angular CLI JSON file, which means that that application was created using the Angular CLI. Right, so if we have an Angular CLI there, just go ahead and do an npm run build. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that just in a sec. But basically what's gonna say, it's gonna go to that folder and get the package.json and run the command in the build. Okay. All right, so that's saved. But now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my package folder, my package.json file, and I'm gonna make a few changes here. First, I don't want this start here because otherwise in my mess when I deploy. And what I want to do here is I'm gonna put this -- prod. Okay. So when I run the npm run build, it's gonna run this command here. Okay, but at this point in time, Azure doesn't know what the ng is. Azure doesn't have the Angular CLI installed. So I have to install the Angular CLI. And how do I do that? I need to add a few things here. So you can see that in the dev dependency, we have the Angular CLI and the Angular CLI compiler, all right? The Angular compiler CLI. But they are not in the dependencies themselves, okay? They're only in the dev dependencies, which means they're only gonna run here locally or in the dev environment. Okay, but what I wanna do is I wanna copy these, I'm gonna copy these into this area here. So which means that when I do a npm install in the server, it's gonna also run and install the Angular CLI and the compiler CLI. Okay. What I found lately also is that it requires TypeScript for some reason. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add TypeScript as well. Okay. All right, so I think that's almost there. Okay, so let's go back to our new site here, to the Azure website, and let's see how the build went. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my ng5 test. I'm gonna go to my deployment options. So the build was successful. So I go to init. If I click there, I can have a look at the logs as well. Okay, so it didn't do much. So it basically went here. So handling and Node.js deployment. So it basically ran the kudu sync from the repository to www-root and then run the npm install. Okay, but then you notice here that it tried to start it tried to run the startup command, the ng serve, but it doesn't know what ng is, so it failed. All right. So a bunch of things here, and okay, it finished successfully because it could finish the npm install, but it's not working. So if I go to my website and do a refresh, it's gonna fail, right? And why is that? Because it's not configured properly. Okay, so let's change that a little bit. Okay, so now I came back to my Angular app, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna commit that. Okay, I'm gonna do a git add all, git commit all with the message configuring build steps. Okay, now I can do a git push, and everything is gonna go to the GitHub repository. I go back to my repository here. Okay, it's all there. So if I refresh these, okay, so I've got another commit. Cool. All right, so if I go back to my Azure website, it picked up that. All right, so now it's done. Let's have a look and try the website to see if it works. Awesome, it's working fine. All right, so there is an extra thing that I want to show you, and that's regarding to the routing, the Angular routing. Okay, when we deploy to Azure, we have to tweak a few things regarding to IaaS. so it can handle the Angular routing. Okay, so let's have a look on how it works locally. I've made a few changes to the app so we can demonstrate the routing. And then I'm gonna make changes. I'm gonna add an extra file to the application so we can fix that when we deploy to Azure. Okay, so let's have a look. First, I'm gonna run that. I'm running the application locally now. Let's go and push the application. Now I've got two routes. Okay, one is the home and one is the contact. When I go to contact, it works fine. Okay, cool. And you can see that at the top here, it shows the URL as well. It changed the URL. Okay, so it goes to contact and to home. All right. And the thing that I want to fix when I deploy to Azure is if I go to the contact route straight away, so if I just click enter here, while that works locally, right now if I try that in Azure, it's not going to work, okay? Because IIS won't know how to handle that route, okay? So I need to fix that. So let's go back to our application and let's make some minor changes. So first I want to come back to my blog and I want to copy the web config that I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm going to go to my folder here and I'm going to create a new file called web.config. Okay, so I'm going to paste that, and all this is doing is it's gonna create a URL rewrite rule. It's gonna name as Angular CLI routes. It's basically gonna match any URL at all, and it's gonna redirect that to the root folder, unless it matches with the file or directory. Okay, that's as simple as that. The extra thing I need to do here is in my CLI.json, I need to add that to the assets. So when I build that, I want that to go to the dist folder as well. Okay, so now I'm going to save that. I'm going to stop this from running. I'm gonna do git add all, git commit all, adding web.config. Cool. So now I'm gonna do a git push, and that should go straight to GitHub. And let's try there. Okay, so let's have a look at GitHub. It should now be here. Cool, it's here. The next thing is the Azure website. Okay, so it picked up the change, and now it's gonna build and deploy. Okay, so it finished now. If you do have any issues with your build and deployment, just go and click here. All right. So once you click on the build, you can have a look at the logs. So sometimes it fails, and then you can come here and then you can find out what the issue was. Okay. In this case, yeah, it seems it didn't find any issue. So I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to run my application. Okay, so I've got my home and my contact. It's working fine from here as expected. The thing I want to test is actually coming to the contact route and clicking enter. All right, so it didn't work. And why was that? I went back to my project and I noticed that I actually created the web config file into the root folder, and the web config should have been created in the source folder, in the src folder. So I actually made this change, I push it again, and now let's test that. Okay, so I'm going to my home page. I can change routes here. Let's see if I can change here. Cool, so it works as expected. All right, so that's everything I want to show you today. Thanks for watching. Cheers.